Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to today's live training on whether or not to track when it comes to your health and fitness nutritional goals. So, to track or not to track, that is the question of the day. And honestly, I get this question so often when I have a new client or when somebody is looking to start off on their health and fitness journey. They're like, I really want to get healthy. I really want to lose, 15, 20, 30 pounds, but I just don't want to track my food. And you guys, I get it. Who wants to track their food? Not me, not forever anyway. So that's exactly what today's live is all about. Today's training is going to be whether, just to explain the importance of whether or not you should be tracking your food and when is a good time not to track your food. So, let's go ahead and give it a couple minutes. Let's wait for people to hop on this live training. I'm very prompt, and I know that like 1:30 Mountain Time is kind of a challenging time. So, we'll just give it a few minutes, wait for some people to hop on, but super excited to have you guys here and have you be a part of the Fit Life. And I'm going to dive in a little bit here shortly to what the Fit Life really means to me and why I created the Fit Life. But I know you guys are here for a reason. And if you hang out to the end of this call, I also have an announcement to make. So please stay tuned. But let's dive in. Let's talk about to track or not to track. That is the question. And, thinking about fueling your body with intention. Because I believe that if we fuel our body with intention, that'll help us lead to the point where we do not have to track anymore. But let me share a little quick personal story with you about, just being on my own journey with tracking foods. So I remember when I first started getting into my own health and fitness journey and really dive, like getting almost obsessed with tracking every little morsel of food that went into my body. And while, yes, it is important to track, I also feel that there is sometimes a downside to tracking. And that's when we start focusing too much on those numbers and do get obsessed with the foods that are going into our body. And where we start just getting really rigid and stressed about tracking every single thing. So now I like to approach it with a way more different approach, with a little bit more love, grace, flexibility, which is what the Fit Life is all about. It's not about those extremes. So when I was doing my bodybuilding, oh goodness, this was like 12 years ago when I got into the fitness. Well, I was already a personal trainer and in the fitness industry, but I really dived into bodybuilding. And when I got into bodybuilding, I created a really unhealthy relationship with not just over exercising, but with the foods that I was eating and making sure I had to track. That's my example of a downside when it comes to tracking, is like getting obsessed and letting, like, seeing the foods that you're eating, seeing what you're tracking, and like letting it go down a path of destruction, which is what I did. So my goal for you all is not to do what I did. And I really believe that everything that I teach in the Fit Life is because of my own personal experiences. And my own personal experiences, you guys, I did all of the wrong things, all of the wrong things. And, I tracked very obsessively. And these are things that I have noticed, I have seen come up with clients or, friends. And that's why I teach what I teach, is so that we can get you to a point where things are in moderation and things feel good and have balance in your life instead of take over and consume your life, because that's what I let it do to me when I first started my journey. So thank you guys for being here. Super excited for this training today. So first of all, let's talk about like, what is the purpose of tracking? So first of all, the number one reason I have women start tracking when they come to me is because a lot of times women are unaware of how much they are eating or what exactly they're eating. So by tracking, it just really helps them understand, first of all, am I overeating? Am I undereating? And it helps you really see like, oh, I eat way too many carbs, or, ooh, my fat intake is really high. I'm not getting enough protein in. So it really helps you understand the different macronutrients that you're eating and how to create a little bit more balance within your own diet. Another kind of like following that up, it helps you identify any nutritional gaps that you may be missing. Again, whether that's you're over consuming, undernourishing your body, not eating enough protein, eating too much fat and carbs, what does that look like? So we don't know until you start tracking. So when you start tracking, this is what I suggest. I suggest that you eat as if you were like, eat how you normally eat. So first of all, this is true. This is honest to you and your lifestyle. So just track what you're eating. And I want you to track at minimum 3 days during the week and 1 day on the weekend. So generally I have my clients track their food for about a week before I really dive in and give them any nutritional goals. But for you, I think a great place to start would be ultimately, getting a minimum 3 days during the week to see like where your calorie goals or where your calorie intake is. And then a lot of people, the weekends look a lot different than they do during the week, so we've got to get those numbers in there as well. And then I think it's really important that tracking food really does create accountability. So tracking provides structure and it encourages healthier choices and it helps you plan ahead. I've had multiple clients where they are like, they just can't seem to get their protein in. Or they're like, oh, I'm getting too many carbs, I'm getting too many proteins. Well, if they can track their foods ahead of time and plan out their meals, that's what's going to lead to more success. And it also helps you just determine, what nutritional gaps you have in your diet. So it creates that accountability and it helps you see where you're going in the future. So I love that about tracking. So again, some potential downsides of tracking, because there's always the good, there's always the bad. So we got to talk about the good and the good and the ugly, right? So I kind of shared a little bit of part of my story about, 12 plus years ago when I went down this rabbit hole. And during this rabbit hole, I let's see, during this rabbit hole, I really was restricting too much and I became too focused on the numbers. So that could potentially be a downside of tracking. For a lot of women, it can lead to over obsessing over their calories or their macronutrients. And then it leads to this feeling of restriction. So tracking every meal can sometimes create a sense of that rigidity and stress, especially when it comes to like social situations. So that is the potential downside of tracking. Obviously, the good sides when it comes to bringing that awareness is very important, creating accountability, identifying nutritional gaps within your nutrition is very important. So I would say definitely the good outweighs the ugly. And how can we approach this though? How can we approach this in a more loving, graceful way? And use tracking as a way to transition into eating intuitively, because that's our goal. I know there is not a single person in this world who wants to track every food that goes in their mouth for the rest of their lives. I cannot imagine myself being 70 years old and, picking up my phone and tracking every little calorie that I eat. So this is where, you know, using tracking as a tool and not a crutch. So this can be a starting point again to learn those habits, but it shouldn't be something that is a long-term dependency. Also, as we are making this transition, tracking helps you understand hunger cues. So if we can really learn to listen to our body and recognize when we are truly hungry and truly full, that's another way to use tracking as a tool. And then, continually moving forward just with mindful eating practices, which helps us slow down while we're eating, savor foods and flavors, and really, really just get to a point where we're recognizing emotional versus physical hunger. So I think this is the most important part is, bringing that awareness, learning those nutritional gaps, using tracking as a tool and gradually moving forward so that we can get to a place where we are mindfully eating. And I think one other thing about tracking is it helps you determine, like it helps you realize portion sizes. So, along with determining if you're have nutritional gaps within your diet, it does help you determine or know what a serving size looks like for you and what serving sizes you need to have in your diet or in your meals in order to reach your personal goals. So for example, you when you start measuring and tracking your foods, you know what a four ounce serving looks like. And then because you already have measured and tracked for a good amount of time, that leads you to a point where you know that roughly, something the size and thickness of a deck of cards is about four ounces. So that helps you just make that transition more into intuitive eating. So when do we want to start tracking? So I'm kind of gonna backpedal a little bit and just help you think about some practical steps for starting and stopping tracking. So I think it's really important to start tracking when you first jump on your health and fitness journey. So when, like I mentioned in the beginning, when someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to lose, 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds. Well, first of all, we need to start tracking our foods to bring that awareness. So that helps you determine those portion sizes, your macronutrient needs, and it again helps you establish that routine. So when is a good time to stop tracking? And I feel like that's when you have got to a point where you feel like you have I would say like you have a good understanding of portion sizes. You have a good understanding of listening to your body, and you have got to a point where you've made some really good progress along your weight loss journey. So that could be a moment to stop tracking and, just being able to use that knowledge that you learned as a tool, tracking as a tool to be able to track or eat more intuitively. But then I also think it's important to learn how to eat intuitively, listen to your body, and trust yourself and trust your intuition. And then when like let's say you feel like you need to dial things back in, that could be a great time to just use tracking again as a tool, not as a crutch, and just bring that back into your life for a short period of time, kind of dial things back in, and then get back into that more of an intuitive approach. It's very step by step. It doesn't happen overnight. I think it can, it really it's a person by person, uh, you know, it comes down to like everybody's a little bit different. So some people might be ready to move into intuitive eating a lot sooner. Or, some people really might enjoy tracking foods a little bit longer before they make that transition. But again, the end goal is ultimately to get to a place where you don't have to track your foods forever. So with that, I did want to open the floor for any questions or any feedback. So if you have any questions, any feedback, please feel free to drop that in the comments or drop that in the chat, and I can go ahead and answer any questions you have. Or again, any feedback, personal experience, like what have you experienced with your own tracking journey and your own health and fitness journey? Doo, doo. All right. So we're gonna wrap this up. As always, I love keeping these trainings short and sweet, about 15 minutes long. So with that, just a quick little recap. I do believe that at the beginning of your fitness journey, it is a great time to track your foods. It's gonna help you bring awareness, it's gonna help you with figure out if you have any nutritional gaps in your diet, and it's also going to bring some awareness to your eating behaviors. Um, Thank you for all your insight on when we track and when not to. Yes, of course. And also, yeah, I think it's just a great tool, but it's a tool that is something that is ultimately a means to an end, right? We don't want to be tracking for the rest of our lives. So that's where we can really learn all of those tools that we need from tracking, bringing that awareness, and transition our life or transition to a point where we no longer have to track anymore. So as I mentioned, I have an announcement. We do have a free 4-day challenge coming up in November. So that's going to start November 11th through November 15th or 16th. I'll have to go double check. But I wanted to let you guys know that we have that challenge coming up. And if you are interested, we will get you signed up. So super excited about that. Again, thank you so much for joining me today on this live training about whether or not to track or not to track. That is the question. And I hope you have a beautiful, blessed day, and let's live the fit life together. All right. Thank you guys for joining me. I'll see you next time.